of the coming years. Moody's, an independent Wall Street firm, said my approach will create more than 18 million good-paying jobs. Our rescue and recovery plan is a path forward with both seriousness of purpose and a clear plan, with transparency and accountability, with a call for unity that is equally necessary. And unity is not some pie-in-the-sky dream. It's a practical step to getting the things we have to get done as a country get done together. As I said when it passed in December, the bipartisan COVID-19 relief package was a very important first step. And I'm grateful for the Democrats, Republicans, and independent members of Congress who came together to get it done. But I said at the time, it's just a down payment. We need more action, more bipartisanship, and we need to move quickly. We need to move fast. Our rescue plan starts aggressively in order to speed up our national COVID-19 response. The vaccines offer so much hope, and we're grateful to the scientists and researchers and everyone who participated in the clinical trials. We're also grateful for the rigorous review and testing that has led to millions of people around the world already being vaccinated safely. But the vaccine rollout in the United States has been a dismal failure thus far. Tomorrow, I will lay out our vaccination plan to correct course and meet our goal of 100 million shots at the end of my first 100 days as president. This will be one of the most challenging operational efforts we have ever undertaken as a nation. We'll have to move heaven and earth to get more people vaccinated, to create more places for them to get vaccinated, to mobilize more medical teams to get shots in people's arms, to increase vaccine supply, and to get it out the door as fast as possible. We'll also do everything we can to keep our educators and students safe, to safely reopen a majority of our K-8 schools by the end of the first 100 days. We can do this if we give the school districts, the schools themselves, the communities, the states, the clear guidance.
The good news is we didn't miss anything. It was mostly intro.
That they can't afford right now because of the economic dilemma they're in. That means more testing and transportation, additional cleaning and sanitizing services in those schools, protective equipment and ventilation systems in those schools. We need to make sure that workers who have COVID-19 symptoms are quarantined, and those who need to take care of their family members with COVID-19 symptoms should be able to stay home from work and still get paid. This will reduce the spread of the virus and make sure workers get the support they need to maintain their families. But we need about $400 billion in funding from Congress to make all of what I just said happen. It's a great deal, but I'm convinced we're ready to get this done. The very health of our nation is at stake. Our rescue plan also includes immediate relief to Americans hardest hit and most in need. We will finish the job of getting a total of $2,000 in cash relief to people who need it the most. The $600 already appropriated is simply not enough. We just have to choose between paying rent and putting food on the table. Even for those who've kept their jobs, these checks are really important. You see, if you're an American worker making $40,000 a year with less than $400 in savings, maybe you've lost hours, or maybe you're doing fewer shifts, driving a truck or caring for the kids or the elderly. You're out there putting your life on the line to work during this pandemic and worried every week that you get sick, lose your job, or worse.
We think Kamala's going to speak. I mean, she's back there, but I hope she speaks too.
We'll also provide more peace of mind for struggling families by extending unemployment insurance beyond the end of March for millions of workers. That means that 18 million Americans currently relying on unemployment benefits while they look for work can count on these checks continuing to be there. Plus, There will be a $400 per week supplement so people can make ends meet. This gets money quickly into the pockets of millions of Americans who will spend it immediately on food and rent and other basic needs. As the economists tell us, that helps the whole economy grow. We'll also tackle the growing hunger crisis in America. As I speak, and the Vice President-elect has spoken to this many times, 1 in 7 households in America, more than 1 in 5 Black and Latino households in America, report they don't have enough food to eat. This includes 30 million adults and as many as 12 million children. It's wrong. It's tragic. It's unnecessary. It's unacceptable. So we're going to extend emergency nutritional assistance for 43 million children and their families enrolled in the SNAP program through the rest of this year. We'll help hard-hit restaurants prepare meals for the hungry, provide food for the families who need it. We'll invest $3 billion in making sure mothers and their young children have the nutrition they need. This will not only meet our moral obligation we have to one another, but will also spur our economic growth, get restaurants and workers back on the job. And as we work to keep people from going hungry, we'll also work to keep a roof over their heads, to stem the growing housing crisis and evictions that are looming. Approximately 14 million Americans are falling behind on rent, many at risk of eviction. If we don't act now, there'll be a wave of evictions and foreclosures in the coming months as the pandemic rages on. This would overwhelm emergency shelters, increase COVID-19 infections as people have nowhere to go and can't socially distance. Next week, we'll take action to extend nationwide restrictions on evictions and foreclosures. This will provide more than 25 million Americans greater stability instead of living on the edge every single month.
Okay, so we might do an executive order for that.
Congress to do its part by funding rental assistance for 14 million hard-hit families and tenants. It will also be a bridged economic recovery for countless mom and pop landlords. These crises are straining the budgets of states and cities and tribal communities that are forced to consider layoff and service restrictions of the most needed workers. It means that people putting their lives at risk are the very people now at risk of losing their jobs. Police officers, firefighters, all first responders, nurses, educators. You know, over the last year alone, over 600,000 educators have lost their jobs in our cities and towns. Our rescue plan will provide emergency funding to keep these essential workers on the job and maintain essential services. We will ensure that vaccines are administered and schools can reopen. Vice President-elect Harris and I have been speaking with county officials, mayors, governors of both parties on a regular basis. We're ready to work with them to help them get the relief they need. Our rescue plan will also help small businesses that are the engines of our economic growth, our economy as a whole, the glue that holds communities together as well. But they're hurting badly. And you realize they account for nearly half of the entire total U.S. workforce. Our rescue plan will provide flexible grants to help those hardest hit small businesses survive the pandemic, and a low-cost capital that will help entrepreneurs of all backgrounds create and maintain jobs, plus provide the essential goods and services that communities depend upon. Last week, I laid out how we'll make sure that our emergency small business relief is distributed swiftly and equitably, unlike the first time around. We're going to focus on small businesses on Main Street. We'll focus on minority-owned small businesses, women-owned small businesses, and finally having equal access to the resources they need to reopen and to rebuild. And we will be responsible with taxpayers' dollars, ensuring accountability that reduces waste and fraud and abuse like we did in the Recovery Act that I administered in our administration. direct cash payments, extended unemployment insurance, rent relief, food assistance, keeping essential frontline workers on the job, aid to small businesses. These are the key elements to the American Rescue Plan that would lift 12 million Americans out of poverty and cut child poverty in half. That's 5 million children lifted out of poverty if we move. Our plan will reduce poverty in the Black community by 1/3, reduce poverty in the Hispanic community by almost 40%. And includes much more, like an increase in the minimum wage to at least $15 an hour. People tell me that's going to be hard to pass. Florida just passed it. As divided as that state is, they just passed it. The rest of the country is ready to move as well. It should be a national minimum wage of $15 an hour. No one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line. That's what it means. If you work for less than $15 an hour and work 40 hours a week, you're living in poverty. It includes access to affordable child care that will enable parents, particularly women, to get back to work. I look forward to working with members of Congress from both parties to move quickly to get the American Rescue Plan to the American people. And then we can move with equal urgency and bipartisanship to my Build Back Better recovery plan that I will call for next month to generate even more economic growth. American manufacturing was the arsenal of democracy in World War II. It will be so again. Imagine a future made in America, all made in America, and all by Americans. We'll use taxpayers' dollars to rebuild America. We'll buy American products, supporting millions of American manufacturing jobs, enhancing our competitive strength in an increasingly competitive world. Imagine historic investments in research and development to sharpen America's innovative edge in markets where global leadership is up for grabs. Markets like the battery technology, artificial intelligence, biotechnology, clean energy. Imagine confronting the climate crisis with American jobs and ingenuity leading the world. It's time to stop talking about infrastructure and to finally start building an infrastructure so we can be more competitive. Millions of good paying jobs that put Americans to work rebuilding our roads, our bridges, our ports, to make them more climate resilient, to make them faster, cheaper, cleaner, to transport American-made goods across our country and around the world. That's how we compete. And imagine millions of jobs in a caregiving economy to ease the financial burden of caring for young children and aged loved ones. Let's make sure our caregivers, mostly women, women of color, immigrants, have the same pay and dignity that they deserve. So we can do these bold, practical things now. You know, I know what I just described does not come cheaply. The failure to do so will cost us dearly. The consensus among leading economists is we simply cannot afford not to do what I'm proposing. Independent, respected institutions from around the world, from the Federal Reserve to the International Monetary Fund, have underscored the urgency. Even Wall Street firms have reinforced the logic. If we invest now boldly, smartly, and with unwavering focus on American workers and families, we will strengthen our economy, reduce inequity, and put our nation's long-term finances on the most sustainable course. And where we're making permanent investments, recurring investments, as I said in the campaign trail, we will pay for them by making sure that everyone pays their fair share, not punishing anybody. We can do it without punishing a single person by closing tax loopholes for companies that ship jobs overseas, or to allow American companies, 90 of them, the top Fortune 500, to pay zero in federal income taxes, asking everyone to pay their fair share at the top so we can make permanent investments to rescue and rebuild America. It's the right thing for our economy. It's the fair thing. It's the decent thing to do. We not only have an economic imperative to act now, I believe we have a moral obligation in this pandemic in America. We cannot let people go hungry. We cannot let people get evicted. We cannot watch nurses, educators, and others lose their jobs. We so badly need them. We must act now and act decisively. My fellow Americans, the decisions we make in the next few weeks and months are going to determine whether we thrive in a way that benefits all Americans, or whether we stay stuck in a place where those at the top do great, while economic growth for most everyone else is just a spectator sport, and where American prospects dim, not brighten. These investments will determine whether we reassert American leadership and outcompete our competitors in a global economy. We're better equipped to do this than any nation in the world. Or that we watch them catch up and pass us by. Together, I know which path we'll choose. And that includes all Americans, so we can own the 21st century. But even with all these bold steps, it's going to take time to get where we need to be. There will be stumbles, but I will always be honest with you about both the progress we're making and what setbacks we meet. And here's the deal. The more people we vaccinate, the faster we do it, the sooner we can save lives and put this pandemic behind us and get back to our lives and our loved ones. And the sooner we can rescue and rebuild the American economy, the biggest and most profitable engine in the world. I know it's been nearly a year that tested us beyond measure. For all of you who have lost someone, my heart goes out to you. I know that feeling looking at an empty chair across the table. All of you have fallen on hard times. I know you can never get back what you lost. But as your president, I know that every day matters and every person matters. From the very first to the nearly 400,000 lost American souls and counting, to the millions of you just looking for a fighting chance in this economy, I promise you, we will not forget you. We understand what you're going through. We will never, ever give up. And we will come back. We'll come back together. Well, we didn't get into all this overnight. We won't get out of it overnight. And we can't do it as a separated and divided nation. The only way we can do it is to come together as fellow Americans, as neighbors, as the United States of America. And when we do, there's nothing beyond our capacity. I've said this many times. When America acts as one, there's never been a single thing we've been unable to do, no matter how consequential the issue has been. Out of all the peril of this moment, I want you to know, I give him a word, I see the promise as well. We've seen clearly what we face now. And I remain so optimistic about America. As optimistic as I've ever been. We have everything we need, but the will must be demonstrated. So come Wednesday, we begin a new chapter. The Vice President-elect and I will do our best to meet all the expectations you have for the country and the expectations we have for it. I'm confident. I am truly confident. Together, we can get this done and come out better off than when we went into this crisis. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops.
Q&A?
Come on.
Have you heard from the parliamentarian about bifurcation, sir? Will bifurcation work with this agenda and impeachment?
Okay, travelers need to load.
Come on. Kamala didn't say a single word. And not only that, but Biden didn't answer a single question. What's up with that? Okay. All right. So let's just do a summary here of what we heard. Okay. So here we go. The stimulus plan is out. We know it's $1.9 trillion. We got like this much extra detail in him speaking. I'm actually surprised we didn't get more details. I'm going to break down some of the things that I wrote down here that are different, and I'm also going to reiterate what's new. So Biden's priority is vaccinating people. He says the sooner people are vaccinated, the sooner we can rebuild the economy. His initiatives include $15 per hour in federal minimum wage. Just to make this clear, that does not mean federal employees. That means everyone in the country. It means countries and states, rather, not countries, have to have at least a $15 per hour minimum wage. We do expect some details on this about restaurant workers. So potential that restaurant workers will have to be paid at least that $15 per hour as well. So we'll see how that goes. We don't know if that's going to phase in or how that's going to come into play. Let's see here. We've got $1,400 stimulus checks. That's per person. Adult dependents are included. Not sure on garnishments yet as to whether or not we'll see the similar garnishments as the $600 or the CARES Act. So we don't know that yet. We didn't get many details here from Biden during his speech. His speech really almost seemed a little bit like it was just kind of like hoorah to what was announced, but earlier, but not really more detail. Like I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit more like, okay, on the stimulus checks, this is our thinking. On unemployment, this is our thinking. It was a little bit more celebratory, like we're gonna come together and we're gonna heal the country. Okay, I get it. I know there'll be more time for obviously Q&A and all that stuff in the future. I just like having more detail now. Everybody usually does, but anyway, maybe he doesn't even have it yet. SNAP program, 15% extension will be extended through September 30th. Earned income tax credit will be approximately tripled from $530 to $1,500 with expanded eligibility. This should, by the way, include the rule changes they made in the prior stimulus package, which let you use your prior year's tax return. You could kind of pick which tax return you wanted to use to get the credit. Business loans, the Washington Post reported that there would be $35 billion and in business loans, low interest business loans tied to green energy. However, then there was also a report in Bloomberg that $35 billion would be leveraged up to create $175 billion in small business loans for people to use or businesses to use. That I'm very interested in because $175 billion is more money than the Paycheck Protection Program. That is than the first round, at least. That's a huge amount of money. And so that'll be really interesting. Expanded paid leave, the child tax credit. Okay, so yes, here is how the child tax credit works, folks. I'm getting so many questions on the child tax credit. I will explain using the whiteboard. So right now, the child tax credit is $2,000. So if you have a child, you get a $2,000 tax credit as long as your income isn't greater than, I think it's $150,000. That is going away. So that is the old, right? This is Trump era. This was one of Ivanka Trump's pushes. Now, what you're going to see is this. Every child from 0 to 17, every child will get $3,000 as a credit. And this will be a refundable tax credit, which I'll explain what that means. So that'll be a refundable tax credit. If a child is between 0 and 6, they will get an extra $600, which means they get I'll put it in parentheses here, $3,600 total. So between 0 and it's actually, well, I should say this. It's really 0 to under 6. There, that makes that, I think, a little bit more clear. So once you turn 6, you're in this group, right? But the way it's gonna be structured is every kid gets $3,000. If you're under 6, you get an extra $600 on top of that. The phase out for that child credit. So this is the income phase out. That has been increased. And for a single filer, that'll be $200,000. And for a married filing jointly filer, that phase out will be $400,000. And then it'll go down by, $100 per extra $1,000 you make or whatever the phase out ends up being. The fact that this is a refundable credit means that if, let's say, you only owe $5,000 in taxes, but you've got 3 kids and you're technically supposed to get $3,000 each, that's $9,000, you would get $4,000 as a tax refund on top of whatever other refund you were expecting. So that's good. Usually credits expire when they're not considered, when they're not considered refundable. So in other words, it's better. You would get the full credit. As long as you're within that income threshold, you would get the full credit. Okay, then we've got unemployment, $400 boost through September 30th, starting when the last program expires. So when the last program expires, like the first week of March or whatever, we're going to go from $300 to $400, and that'll keep going through September 30th. Remember, September 30th is the fiscal budget deadline. That's when the United States fiscal budget ends. And so it seems like they're trying to keep as much of the stimulus contained to 2021 fiscal budgets here. We'll see. Speaking of budget, technically, Biden can leverage this bill through a budget reconciliation plan, and he can get this bill passed with just 51 votes. However, that's not how he's planning to introduce this, based on what we hear now. He's planning to get bipartisan support on this. He's planning to get Republicans on board with this as well. Thank you, Chris, for the $4.99. And Joe, thank you for saying smile. You look a little upset. Yes, I was a little upset when I screwed up with the other live video. Sorry about that. But I came back. Real fast. Anyway, so yes, Biden can use the budget reconciliation method and just slam this bill through with 51 votes. He has 9 opportunities to do that. And this could be one of them. However, it seems like he's trying to forge a bipartisan relationship with Republicans, and he didn't actually go to the moon with this package. He initially said this package was going to be worth trillions of dollars. It came in at $1.9 trillion, which is less than trillions, because plural of trillion would be 2 trillion, at least. So maybe he's just trying to get Republicans to be on board and okay with him doing a stimulus package, and so that way he can get the 10 votes. We'll see. On unemployment, again, $400 boost. We're not sure yet if the state unemployment will be extended along with this. We expect it to be. This is not retroactive. We don't know if we're going to see the triggers. $40 billion going to increase testing. $15 minimum wage appears to be in this. We mentioned that earlier. State and local government aid, $350 billion. Schools will get $170 billion for K through 12 and higher education. More vaccine distribution money and plans, potentially doing community center vaccinations. So community centers would be like stadiums and other venues where they can actually provide vaccines. So that should help accelerate the pace of vaccinations, which would be good. The $10,000 student loan forgiveness is not in this bill, at least at this point. It could always be added in. The bill is not written yet. So who knows? Maybe it'll get added in negotiations. If maybe Biden's waiting for this on purpose. Republicans will come in and they'll say, hey, we want liability protections. He comes in and says, fine, we'll give you liability protections, but we want $10K in student loan forgiveness. Entirely possible. So it might include liability. Yeah, exactly. That's where it might include the liability protections. So again, schools are going to get funding for rental assistance. We're seeing $30 billion on top of the $25 billion that are already approved, which is great. An extension of the ban on evictions and foreclosures. So he might end up doing that through executive order, because he said next week we will extend the ban on evictions and foreclosures through September. So he could do this through an executive order and then have Congress solidify it. That's a sign to me that he does not expect this bill to pass until February. And the reason is, if he thought this bill would pass in January, then he wouldn't need to do the executive order. And he wants to be really transparent here. So this is going to be a February stimulus package. I would not be surprised if they put this together, towards the end of the January. We get the bill, and then they start negotiating it, and they vote on it in January. That's my guess. So it's not exactly clear what's going to happen with mortgage forbearance. We do know Biden said that 14 million can't pay rent. Again, bill's not written yet. Yep. Okay, good. So that's what we got. That is what we have. Yeah, let's see your question. I know there is also money for paying for National Guard activation. Yes. Rental assistance programs have been a mess. Let's see how round 2 goes. Well, hopefully they get that all fixed up. Child tax credit, we don't know when that'll go into effect. It could end up being, my guess is it's not going to be retroactive. It would cause such a disaster. My guess is it's going to be a 2021 tax year thing. So when you file in 2022, you would get that, basically. So we'll see, though. Oh, sorry, Aaron. I didn't know that you had to refresh there. Sorry about that. see any other questions here. It does sound like they'll be extending the PEUC and the PUA, but it's not entirely clear. But that's my guess. Yes. Talked about the tax question there. Good. Tesla stock prediction. Everything's going to the moon. We did not see the $200 boost. There was a lot of talk about the $200. In fact, there was like a ton of clickbait about new $2,400 stimulus checks going to SSI, SSDI. It's unfortunate. It was mentioned, but this was like buried back in the economic plan he outlined in like last year at this time, probably like last January. So I don't know if it was forgotten, if it's coming back. Who knows? We'll see. Active duty military receiving any stimulus at all. I don't see why you wouldn't receive stimulus. I don't know. I think if you're asking for like something other than the actual normal stimulus checks, no, I didn't. There's actually nothing that we've seen mentioned for any kind of first responders, hazard pay, none of that. So no hazard pay, no frontline worker pay. We haven't seen any of that. And we haven't seen that $200 either. So, okay, good. Well, we've been talking for like 2.5 hours now. I think we've got a pretty clear picture thus far between the two videos that I've done. So there we go. We've got Biden's speech. We've got lots of Q&A. I'm sure a lot more information will come out in the next few days. Bitcoin is almost at 40,000. Go use that coupon code if you still want to use it. I will be changing the price tonight. So if you made it to these live streams, I appreciate y'all so much. I want to give you that opportunity. Use that coupon code. It's in the pin thing and it's in the comment down below. It says expiring Jan 8, but you could still use it. It will change. I will change it tonight and then it won't work anymore though. All right, folks. Thanks so much for being here. Love all of you and we will see you next time. Bye.